You're listening to The Frequency Exchange. I'm your resident deity, London Beck, music multi-hyphenate and entrepreneur. With almost 15 years worth of a music career and building my brand, I've done it all. Released several music projects, performed at some noteworthy venues, and even have an award under my belt along with my private production house, Renovere Recording. Join me bi-weekly as I chat with fellow creatives and business professionals alike as we reminisce over origin stories, advice on creating brand platforms, and navigating ambition while balancing the personal of it all. Drop the needle, let's spin it. Hello, people of the Frequency Exchange. It is London Beck, and I am back for another episode. Today's guest, I always have a ball speaking with her, and I am super excited that I get to turn the tables for once. She is a music journalist extraordinaire, especially in the Michigan scene. She is the editor and writer of her very own The Stratton set list. She is an editor and writer at the Ann Arbor District Library. She is also on the board of the Michigan Music Alliance. And I would love for y'all to give a very, very, very warm welcome to someone who is one of my favorite humans, Lori Stratton.
Thanks for having me, London. It's nice to be on here.
Absolutely. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good. I'm super excited to have you on the Frequency Exchange. You get the wonderful pleasure of reviewing a lot of people's art. You get to review a lot of art. You get to listen to it. You get to see it live in person. And not only that, but you really get the pleasure of connecting with a lot of different people and hearing tons of different stories. And so I just wanted to be able to talk your ear off and just really talk about this wonderful, incredible gift and passion that you have. Especially in the current times when it's really important for us to be able to continue to tell our stories, not to jump into the dark deep end right away, but we're living in a time where it is so important that we are able to continue to not only tell our own stories, but help others share theirs as well. So to get started, I would love for you to tell the people a little bit more about what you do and how you got started with music journalism and writing about music.
Yeah, so as you mentioned kind of earlier, so I published my own music blog called the Stratton Set List, which focuses primarily on Michigan artists. I do cover some out of state, but the key theme is that they're all independent. So the fact is we're highlighting people who write, record their own music, produce their own to some extent, perform in a lot of different capacities. And then in addition to that, I also write for Pulp, which is Ann Arbor District Library's arts and culture blog, where we cover music and theater, film, books, all kinds of stuff, art in Washtenaw County. And so I do that. That's kind of what I call my day job. Stratton Set List I do on the side. And then you mentioned Michigan Music Alliance. I am also a board of director for that nonprofit, and we provide educational and professional developmental resources for musicians in Michigan. And a lot of what we focus on is collaboration over competition. So we want to foster a community where people work together to share different resources, whether that's like tips about sync licensing or songwriting or branding or what have you. We are also working on some different programming coming up. We have actually a conference in Detroit on Saturday, October 18th at Wayne State University that we have on our website if folks are interested in attending that. And then the other nonprofit organization I'm involved in is GIG, the Art of Michigan Music. And we focus on visual art related to music. So that could be concert photography, concert posters, album artwork, and just things that support music from a visual art standpoint. And we have a one-day conference that's coming up in Jackson at Art 634 on Saturday, November 8th. So lots of good events in the works, and I just enjoy being part of music journalism, but also the larger Michigan music community to collaborate with people across, kind of the entire ecosystem we have here in the state. So that's to answer your first question. And then about how I got started in music journalism, I have always been a writer, and I've always been a journalist. But for the longest time, I actually worked in corporate communications for several different industries for 20 years. And then I got burned out of that line of work and decided to start my music blog, the Stratton Setlist, in 2015, and just kind of started finding a lot of local artists to talk to. And the more I met people, the more talented folks I found that I wanted to interview, the more they were releasing music, and the more I had to write, and the more fun it became to kind of partner with people in that capacity. And so I just kind of decided to leave the corporate communications world behind during the pandemic and decided to do Stratton Setlist full time. I did that for a bit and then ended up freelancing for Pulp, and that led to a job writing for them full time in 2022. So that's kind of the path that I took to get to that role as a music journalist.
Absolutely. And have you always been like, I know I know the answer to this, but have you always been kind of like a music head? Have you just always just
Yes.
loved music? Okay.
Yes. Yes. So coincidentally, like the Stratton set list, I'm in the process of kind of celebrating the 10th anniversary of that, and I recently wrote a post that's kind of like my origin story, and I talk about growing up in a household that loved music. My parents played all kinds of music. My older brother was into music, and it was kind of everywhere in the background. And I was kind of basically training to be a music journalist my whole life without even realizing it. So whether it was like whether it was watching shows like Soul Train or like Bandstand or Solid Gold, Dance Fever growing up because I like to dance too. And then I got into disco music because of my parents, and then that led my brother introduced me to a lot of like college rock and like kind of more indie type stuff growing up. And then that kind of led to a love of, honestly, my favorite band is Fleetwood Mac. And through them, I started investigating a lot of their catalog and kind of read a lot of articles about them. And that's kind of what got me interested in like reading and studying up on music. And so that's kind of what laid the groundwork for me to become a music journalist, was because of my love of them. I was like 11 years old. So I just dug in, and then I started listening to a lot of other artists over time, and just found that as I was listening to their music, I would study their lyrics and liner notes, and I would say, what's making me connect to the song. Granted, my insights were like slightly different at like 11 or like, as a teenager. But like as an adult, as I look back and I see, well, I really was emotionally connecting to the music as to what people were saying in the lyrics. I was emotionally connecting sonically to the music that they were conveying in a particular song or album. And so it was always been there. It just took me a long time to figure out how to articulate that. And I found as I started interviewing people and writing articles for the Stratton Setlist when I was much older, that I was able to do that. And so to me, the most important aspect of music is to find the emotional connection and to resonate with what the person is saying or playing in the song. And then to see how can I make that kind of relate to my own life, and how do I interpret that as a listener?
Absolutely. I knew there was a reason why I liked you. I love, 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 love Fleetwood Mac. I can't remember how old I was the first time I heard. And of course, I feel like it's like the cliche song that everybody gets introduced to with Fleetwood Mac, Dreams. But I just
Oh, sure.
but it just, Stevie Nicks, and just hearing the rest of the band, every time I listen to any song by Fleetwood Mac, it just makes me feel ethereal. It makes me feel light. It makes me feel free, I think, is ultimately what I'm getting at.
I totally get that, because as a kid growing up, my parents played Rumors, so that was kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
like, I mean, I was hearing that. They were playing that on like the record player when I was just like a baby. So my before my mom passed away, she always used to say, "You always knew Fleetwood Mac before you knew Fleetwood Mac," is what she would say. Because they'd play the music, and then later on, in when I was 11, their album Tango in the Night that came out in 1987 was
Hmm.
really resonated with me. My brother had bought the album and brought it home, and he listened to it, but he didn't connect to it as much as I did. And so I really connected to it, and that's what kind of set it off for me. And even at that age, you talk about Stevie Nicks. Yeah, she's kind of been my hero for a long time. I mean, when I was in sixth grade, I dressed as her for Halloween.
Oh.
I wish I had pictures, but I don't. So like, but I dressed as her for Halloween, and she always resonated in just exactly what you're talking about. That ethereal, kind of atmospheric, kind of kind of hypnotic, just connecting with
Mm-hmm.
people on a different level. There was always kind of like this otherworldly feel with her and the music and the kind of the persona she has on stage that I always admired. And she just seems like the type of person where she would be my best friend if I knew her, like if we actually were friends. You know, and she
Absolutely.
wasn't a superstar. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. And then I also wanted to go back to, one thing that I have always been grateful for in terms of just being born and being raised in Michigan is just there are just so many roots and there's so many different roots in terms of music.
Yes.
And not just music, but just
Yeah.
art in general. Like I find myself always so grateful to be able to, and I mean, especially growing up in a town like Ann Arbor, where like that's one of the pillars. I mean, there's a deeper conversation we can have and dissect all of that, but on the surface level,
Yeah.
the visual and performing arts is one of the pillars of the city. So I've always appreciated just being able to have more access, more doors to walk through when it comes to the visual and performing arts.
Yeah.
Let me think. I know I've always sang and done things musically, but I think it really started to hit me when I was in sixth or seventh grade. There was like an Ann Arbor Public School event, and there were a bunch of like middle school, elementary school kids who had made art, and I forget exactly what the theme was, but they hung it up all in Polio on Main Street.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool.
Yes, and my teacher, who I have managed to stay in contact with many years, she chose me and then three other kids. We made a quartet, and she had us go and play. And I think we played the theme. I think we decided to play the theme of from "Scent of a Woman." I forget what
Oh,
it's
cool.
called, but
Yeah.
yes. And I remember just like looking around, and like that was the first time I think where it really clicked in my brain, where it's like I'm having this like musical experience with other peers. And then there's, this appreciation for even just, the little tykes that are just getting started. And so I have always loved that. And I want to pivot a little bit because with the music journalism piece, you've been all over. You've gotten to speak to a lot of people. I do kind of want to put you on the spot a little bit,
Sure.
and I want you to, and you don't have to say me, but I want you to, I want you to talk a little bit about an interview that you've done with the local talent that has like really resonated and like really sat with you throughout your career.
Oh wow, yeah. There's so many. It's hard to pick one. So I mean, because I've talked to so many people, and so many people I talk to on a recurring basis too,
Yeah.
because people are continuing to release new music or perform regularly. It's honestly, it's really hard for me to pick one. I have to say that like whether I've talked to people in Southeast Michigan or other parts of Michigan, it's just I feel like I kind of connect with people in a lot of different ways. I would say that I tend to get fairly candid during my interviews, and I'll be fairly honest with people and say like, this song really resonates with me, and because here's why.
Hmm.
You know, like particularly a lot of songs. My mom died during the pandemic, so a lot of songs that talk about loss and grief. Those are the ones that hit me the hardest, and they're also very cathartic for me as a listener because I can kind of process that grief while listening along to whatever the songwriter is trying to convey in their song. If it could be a different type of grief, a different type of loss, but I feel like the ones again back to kind of the idea of the emotional connection, where I can emotionally connect to their song, and we can kind of get candid during the interview and talk about personal aspects about what we're going through, if it's related or not, about how kind of like their situation helps me. And I often tend to tell people that I'll say, you're singing about this breakup or you're singing about this loss. And I know this is not, different than the type of loss that I'm processing, but I still can connect to that. And it still helps me deal with it. And it helps me think about it in a way that I hadn't thought of. And so it's really tough for me to pick just one because honestly, everybody I talk to, I take something away from it. I value all the interviews. I really appreciate people's time to sit down and talk with me because I tend to do longer interviews because I like to get in depth with people. And it's the
Absolutely.
idea of establishing that connection and that relationship. And even if we only talk once, but we have a great conversation and I really am able to connect to the music and write about it and feature them and kind of tell their story, that means that always leaves an.
Absolutely. And I know that you and I had previously talked about it in our past conversations, but I still
Yeah.
wanted to very much give my condolences. Um, I very much relate to the loss of a loved one. And
Yes, I know you.
yeah. And I
And thank
want
you for.
absolutely. And before I sit up in here and start to cry with you,
Yeah, that happens. I've done that with people a lot too. They'll often see me get teary eyed. No, I'm not afraid to do that with people, whether it's on the phone or if we're on, video or anything like that. So yes.
absolutely. I wanted to change gears because you talk a lot about just kind of navigating music journalism and whatnot through the pandemic. You started the Stratton set list, and correct me if I'm wrong, way back in 2015. Um, I want you to talk a little bit about how you feel music journalism or journalism in general has changed on the other side of this pandemic.
Yeah, yeah. I would say like around that time. So during I'd say in early to late, like I'd say 2020 to 2021, I wasn't working at part of that time, and so I was doing Stratton Setlist full time. And the one thing that was kind of different at that time is nobody was really performing live unless it was a live stream or an outdoor show during the warmer months. But what people were continually doing was releasing music. So there was tons of music to write about, even though no one could really go out and do a quote unquote typical performance like at a live music venue or wherever that might be. So it was mainly talking to people about their singles, their EPs, their albums that they were putting out, and then kind of talking about what it was like to kind of release a lot of that stuff when you couldn't go out and perform at a traditional capacity like we were used to before the pandemic. So that was kind of one thing that I had noticed. And another thing that kind of came out of that was just getting a chance to like, and I started interviewing people in Michigan, but also in other parts of the country too. So like it was a common thread to see that people were putting all this stuff out and were ready to release all this stuff. And a lot of people said, hey, we might as well, because what else are we going to be doing right now anyway? so, so that was kind of one thing with the pandemic, was kind of focusing on like, I'm just going to keep writing. And I interviewed a bunch of people and just found that like, that's one way you could support people. If we can't get there, we could donate maybe through like some live streams where we would donate through, stuff like that. But the point was, we want to highlight that there's still stuff to listen to and that there's still a way you can support people through, whether it was purchasing a digital download or doing something through Bandcamp or whatever.
100%. And I don't know if you agree, but I definitely feel like the art of any kind that came out around that time, I feel like that really opened the door for some like really deep creative like introspection and honesty. And I mean, I'm sure cuz
Yeah.
we at least the ones who were following along and doing what they were supposed to do. We were all inside. Like I was I was very much inside and was trying to come up with ways of like connecting with people and tried to like implement regular walks and things, but I think just
Yeah.
being being in a time where social interaction was like so limited, something that it's so easy to take for granted. um I think I know like personally for me that very much opened the floodgates for me to really like sit with my thoughts.
I would say definitely. I mean, I did a lot of that even just so during that time. So my mom died in June of 2020. So during that time when she had Alzheimer's, so when she was declining and then she had died, it was a matter of kind of processing a lot of that. And I sort of like you, I had a lot of time to think, and listening to people's music always gives me a lot of time to think because I obviously with writing about all the stuff that I do, there's tons of music and I'm always listening to somebody's release and processing something. So I had a lot of time to think through myself about where was I going in life, what was I doing, especially after my mom had died. And that's when I kind of said, I'm not doing the corporate stuff anymore. I'm not happy with that. I got burned out of that line of work and said, I'm just gonna. I left a job at the time and said, I'm just going to do Stratton Setlist full time to see where that goes because maybe that will lead me in the right direction, and it has. And so I'm always glad I followed that. And my mom's situation was enough that kind of made me reevaluate my priorities and where my life was going. And I'm always grateful for that in a way, because I could have continued down the path I was on, burned out, and not taken that leap. So I'm always grateful for that. And the pandemic was a really good time to think about through a lot of that stuff. And it gave me a chance to be more creative with all my writing, which otherwise, if I hadn't had that time, I may not have done all that stuff. And I'm so glad I've had a chance to talk to all those people and write about all that music.
Absolutely. I think it's something, I mean, as creatives, we're all tortured souls in one way or the other. And
That's for sure.
I guess it is part of the trajectory of the common trope that we would all find some sort of purpose in our pain, if you will.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Now, with you being board members and being a little more active in the community outside of music journalism, because you do a lot, you are very active. Um,
Yes.
and you stay busy. I just, I, what was the, what was the light bulb moment for you? And I want us to talk about this because that is something that continues to come up pretty much in every single episode since the relaunch. We have all we all have our gifts and our talents that we lead
Yes.
with to open
Yes.
those initial doors, but we all have been able to tap into our communities and create extra doors to uplift and really promote other voices. So I just want to know, like, from your life path, like, what was that moment?
Geez, I think it's something that's kind of always been there. I feel like I'm the type of person that likes to include people. I've always enjoyed trying to find a way to include people, to sort of befriend people. I was always the one that often would start conversations with strangers. But and me, I was always naturally the journalist, so I would ask people questions. Like we'd be engaged in a conversation. My friends in high school used to joke, "Well, Lori's going to interview you when you first meet her, so be prepared for that." Like they tell a new friend. They kind of joke about that. But it's just I've always enjoyed. I'm a people person. I've always enjoyed getting to know people, befriending them, finding ways to include them, finding ways to encourage them to pursue whatever their passions are. Whether that's something creative or whatever that might be. When sometimes I like, a lot of times my friends will say, thanks for those words of encouragement, because they'll be down about maybe something they're trying to do and they haven't hit their goal, or they haven't achieved where they want to be, and I say, just keep doing it. A little bit every day helps a lot. I mean, that's kind of what I did with Stratton. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with it. At first, I was writing about touring acts and I was writing about concerts I had gone to, but it didn't feel quite like the right voice. So it took me a while to find my voice. And when I started writing about more local music, that's when I felt like I'd found my voice. And then I could kind of like then take my voice and channel that to share other people's voices. And it's just the idea of helping other people is what I really enjoy doing. Supporting what they're doing. Again, I call myself a champion because, it's just kind of supporting what they're doing, putting it out there, sharing it for people, encouraging them to keep doing it, and telling them that, it makes a difference, for at least for me. And so it's just a matter of, it's the champion is what I would say. But it's kind of always been there. It's just a matter of me trying to find that in my life over time and to kind of embrace that in different capacities, whether that's through my writing or through the volunteer work that I do with Michigan Music Alliance and Gig the Art.
Absolutely. And that's incredibly essential. I think, like, I know, for example, I had Antonio previously on the show. I just had
Awesome.
Maya
Yeah.
from Amplify on the show.
Yeah.
And we
Awesome.
we talked about creating opportunities, creating lanes, if you will, when um, it seems like artists and creatives just in general are unable to access those other lanes. And I feel like even now more than ever, it's just the name of the game. We have traditional powers that be, publications and record labels and all types of other things across the creative spectrum that are trying incredibly hard to maintain their stake in the industry so
Yes.
that they can
Yes.
continue to churn and make money. My mind is still blown. I mean, it's AI and people are people, so obviously this was going to be inevitable, but my mind is still incredibly blown with how quickly AI art and AI publications, and now we have, I'm so over it, AI AI musical artists, and I'm like, what are we
Yes.
doing? And I just think it's incredibly important in the current day rather, that we are continuing to open those doors for each other, that we continue
Yes.
to uplift each other, that we continue to share our knowledge and we continue to share our talents with each other, so that we can really protect our stake, because there's nothing that AI will never be able to do anything nearly as good as a person. I don't care how
Absolutely.
many I don't care how many pictures you can fabricate. I don't care
Yep.
how many articles or books you can write. I don't care how much music you can create. I'm never going to be able to get that intimate, organic feeling of connection out of that piece of material. What are your thoughts about this AI? Do I want to call it, is it a revolution? This AI evolution, this AI takeover, whatever you want to bill it.
Yeah, I think I know this topic comes up a lot with people these days because it's so timely, like you're talking about. I'm with you in the sense that like yes, AI has all these capacities and people use it to kind of supplement some of the things that they're doing in different creative spaces. But when it really comes down to it, I'm with you where you're going to connect with a human creating that piece of work, whatever that might be from an artistic standpoint, because that person has lived it, they have breathed it, they have felt it, and that to me makes all the difference versus a computer replicating something or replicating knowledge and all that. And I think you can use those tools and ways to supplement things, but it will never replace the idea of an actual human creating a piece of work for another human.
Absolutely. And I agree with that supplement part. And I think the supplement part is key, including the word moderation into the conversation.
Yes, I totally agree with that.
I think that where we are going wrong is that we are thinking that this technology will just do everything for us. And I think that's very much the issue. And it's like AI definitely can be a friend if it's used to supplement certain things, not everything.
I I agree. I think yes, I think there are some tools that do help people, but again, I still feel like it's got to be created by a human is to really in order to connect with another human. You've got to have because there's an authenticity to that. There's just sort of a unique quality that cannot be replicated. So I just feel like that is and that to me is the human condition is something that we will always connect to in art and that people convey each in their own way. And that's what I love about it because it's a different experience with each person that
Absolutely. Now, in this age of AI and hypercapitalism, how, if there was someone out there who was listening and they woke up today or tomorrow, I guess since today's almost over, and, and they decided, I think I want to start connecting with people through the medium of journalism. I want to be able to review people's art. I want to be able to speak to them about what makes them tick and how they go about creating these beautiful masterpieces. What would you say would be the path for someone to be able to be a successful journalist in the current day?
Yeah, it's so I'll say it's definitely you kind of have to carve your own path is what I would say. So like if you want to get into music and you like to write, definitely starting your own blog or website is one way to do it. If you prefer like audio or video, then maybe doing a YouTube channel or a podcast would be a way to start. It just depends on what medium you prefer to kind of talk to musicians, review their music, talk with other people in the community. So the nice thing about this day and age is that there are a lot of tools that you can do for almost next to nothing that don't cost a whole lot, that are free online. I mean, I started WordPress and I was using the free version of the website before I bought my domain and did all that, just so that I had something. And I found that like I wasn't sure if I wanted to write for other people or what that would look like. So I thought, I'm just going to write for myself and I'm just going to try to figure this out as I go, because I knew a lot about music from all the albums I had listened to, all the shows I had attended, all the articles I had read, and I had interviewed a lot of people in the past, so I had interview experience, but not necessarily with musicians until I started my blog. And so I would say kind of find your own way first and develop your own site, your own podcast, your own YouTube channel, whatever that might look like, your own medium to kind of get across what you want to share about your knowledge and interest and experience in music. And then, for example, if you want to write, I can speak best to that. You could always look to freelance for other publications. The only challenge is a lot of them aren't paid, or they pay by the article. They don't pay a lot. Journalism is a tough path these days, with a lot of newspapers having closed, a lot of having merged, been bought out. A lot of publications have, pretty much are all online. There's not much of print anymore when I started years ago. So it's just a matter of finding places where you can. There's a lot of independent blogs that you could write for, and that you could, volunteer your time. A lot of them aren't paid, but you could volunteer your time. I mean, everything I write for Stratton Setlist is something I do in my own time. I don't have advertising. I do it all. I do it all just because I love doing it. So, but it's led me to other opportunities. So it's kind of like a vehicle that if you create your own vehicle, it can lead you to other opportunities where you could get paid, or you could get a line of work that's more in that direction of where you want to go, if that's something you choose to do. So I really think it's kind of like adopting the DIY mentality that so many musicians do, like writing their own music, recording it themselves or with a friend in their basement or whatever it might be. It's kind of that grassroots effort to start, and or get out there on social media and just share some thoughts that way. I mean, so there's just a lot of different things these days. And honestly, we need more of that. There aren't enough of us to support music journalism in whatever way that is. We need, so because there's so many talented people to talk about, but there's not enough media. We need more media. So I always encourage other people to go down that path, whether they do it as a career or they do it as something on the side.
Absolutely. And another thing that you spoke to as well, I know that I only picked a few things for your intro, but you write for a lot of publications. You've got A2 Pulp, you've got Current Magazine, you've got the Stratton Setlist, your own thing, just to name a few. And I wanted to ask, do you find that when you are writing for different mediums, of course, one is your own, and then the others belong to other people, do you find generally freedom in writing for other publications? Do you feel, are there some times where maybe you kind of have to not necessarily mute your voice, but tailor it? Do you have the creative range to basically be you when you write these articles?
Yes. I would say the ones that I've written for are the ones where I'm able to do that. And so maybe it's a matter of, I tend to write longer and I write more in depth. So like with Stratton Setlist, I will go long. And often with Pulp, even in cases with Pulp, we tend to get more in depth with our coverage a lot of times. But I would say for some of the other publications, like in the past for Current Magazine, I've written maybe shorter pieces because sometimes places do have a word limit. So it's a matter of kind of adapting to that. But I still get to use my own voice, and I still get a chance to kind of write similar in a style that I would write for Stratton Setlist. But the nice thing about Stratton Setlist is it's my own outlet where I can kind of write, in whatever style I want. I can pretty much pick all the topics I want. I can kind of focus on whoever I want at that time. And other times with other publications, they'll send me and say, hey, would you like to interview this person, for our publication? We're really interested in because they're from this geographic region that we haven't covered enough, or they're in this genre that we haven't, that we'd like to explore. And I'll say yes, because then I'll get to learn something new from that person maybe I haven't talked to, or it's another genre that I get to learn more about that I am still learning and exploring. So I would say the ones that I have written for are the ones where they do give you your chance to kind of still use your voice, but maybe sometimes it's fitting more their criteria for their publication, because every publication has different criteria that they use.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, you said that you had a corporate background. I, you know that I daylight. People say moonlight, but I say daylight because I am a creative at heart and I don't want to do this shit that I have to do during the day, but I'll do it.
I understand.
Because
I
I have to,
understand.
because I have to do it. Are
I hear
there,
you there.
yes. Are there skills, are there experiences that you have had in your corporate world that have carried over? And the reason I ask that is because I feel like I've been able to extend my, I don't want it to sound so miserable, because when I am able to do what is in my skill set, I don't mind, and I do thrive a bit in the corporate setting.
Yes.
But I think what helps me is when I'm able to figure out ways to cross utilize the things that I'm passionate about outside of work, like, or if at the very least I can take on a role or take on a responsibility that will mirror some other skill or piece of knowledge that I'll need in the real world.
Yes. Yes. So I would say, like, in the corporate setting where I tended, when I could be the journalist is when I did
Mm-hmm.
the best. So when I was able to write in a journalistic style and to approach articles and interviews from that mindset is when I really felt like I was able to do the best work that I could do. And that skill set works in a corporate environment. It works for music journalism. It works if you write for a traditional publication like a newspaper. It works in any of those environments. And the first job I had out of college was for a utility. And I worked in a corporate communications department with people that were all former journalists. So they had worked in the journalism world, they had worked for newspapers, and decided to make a change to a corporate job because they had either been laid off or the newspapers had closed, or they had been downsized, or things like that had happened. And my manager at the time was aware that I loved music and said, Lori, why don't you start a blog? And I'm like, nah, I don't really have time for that right now. That's just another thing I have to do. He says, no, you really should, because you go to all these concerts and you like all this music. You should try that. And I said, yeah, okay. And so that was like about 5 years before I even started. And then, it had always been in the back of my mind, but I was never sure how to start it. And then by 2015, I had started, like we had talked about earlier. And I tell this manager all the time, like, if you hadn't kind of pushed me, I'm not sure I'd be doing this. And then the more I got into it, I would meet up with him later on,
Mm-hmm.
after I'd moved on to other jobs. And he would say, you never know, maybe that might lead to a job. And sure enough, it did, because I had written so much stuff that eventually people found me and said, hey, do you want to freelance? Do you want to write for us? And so the skill sets of, like, being a journalist and knowing a good story and knowing how to tell stories and knowing how to interview people and talk with people and ask good questions and have conversations has transferred from corporate to music journalism completely. And so if I hadn't done all those skill sets in the corporate environment over 20 years, and even before that in high school, as when I started with journalism, I probably wouldn't be doing Stratton set lists, and I probably wouldn't be doing all this stuff now, but it really laid the groundwork for that. It was just a matter of, like, I have that skill set. What is the subject matter that I really need to do to find? And it was always in the background, but finally music hit, and I said, that's it. I need to write about that. So
Absolutely.
that's how that skill sets trans. So it kind of laid all that groundwork, and then the music really took off. It was, for me in my 30s when I started going to concerts more and had a full time job and was running around doing all that stuff, and then just realized, well, geez, I have all this knowledge and all this stuff I've done. I might as well start writing something about it. But I just didn't know where it was going to go at the time.
Absolutely. I think it's really important for us to be able to find those little windows where we can not necessarily meld or combine the different worlds in which we exist, but I do think that it's incredibly important for us to be able to find portals between the two, or bridges rather.
Yes. Yes.
Because especially in a world where so many people are laid off, like where, everybody's trying to survive at the end of the day. They're trying to get a job,
Yeah.
but I think we should still remind ourselves, like, being able to have a job to supplement your dreams and push your dreams if you're not yet in a position where your dreams are able to take care of you. That's
Yes.
the first part, but it doesn't just stop there. because if you're not able to, we live in a time now where even companies are willing to admit begrudgingly that we can't be robotic anymore. We can't expect our workforce to be emotionless and to solely think with logic. A lot of times our personalities and the different unique things that we bring with us are the things that can help a company and that usually do help companies be successful. Um, so I find that incredibly important, and I think the older that I get, the more that I am being a little more strategic, if you will, in terms of what I am using my bandwidth during the day to do before I clock out. Because once I clock out, like I'm good. I can record the music I can record the music all day. I can find people to interview for the podcast. I can,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know, find things to change and work on to start to boost the production company. Um, but I think that sometimes when I get up in the morning, I kind of I need to be able to see the bridge. I need to be able to see the bridges between both of those worlds in order for me to remind myself that it's worth it.
Yes, I understand that. When I left during the back when I mentioned the pandemic, when I left my last corporate job and decided to do
Mm-hmm.
Stratton Setlist full time, it took me like a year to decide to do that. So like,
Yeah.
my husband kept encouraging me. He'd say, if you want to just kind of work on this full time, we can figure it out. We can make this work if you really want to do this. And so, but I was hesitant because I wasn't sure if that was the right thing to do or not. And it was just an odd time because we were all at home and we didn't see everybody, just like you and I were talking about earlier. Social interaction was limited. A lot of it was on screen or it was outdoors at that time. So it was just a matter of saying, do I take this chance? And for a while there, I basically, took a good year or more off unpaid for things. I did, some freelance pieces. They weren't paid a whole lot, but I was definitely fulfilled. But there were many times I wrote all this stuff and I said, I'm not getting paid for this. And I'm like, do I need to kind of reevaluate and maybe find another corporate job? Will I still do this on the side? And then it just, and then fortunately it worked out that I was able to, do what I do now. But it was definitely like a leap of faith to try to take that. But since I was able, and I know not everyone are able to do that, to take that risk, to leave a job for a year. I mean, it's a matter of saving up. It's a matter of financially, can I do that? Because that's not an easy thing to do for a lot of people. But we were able, fortunately, in the pandemic, we were able to do that because there wasn't much else going on. So like, it was just a matter of taking that chance. And I think it's worth taking the chance to at least try it for a while. And then if you find, it's not headed in the direction you want, you could always get another job and do that and then come back to it, because I know other people that have done that. They took a while off. Man, I really need a job. They go back to a job. They continue to work on their craft. And then maybe something happens with their craft and they can kind of scale back on the job and make the craft the job. So it kind of just depends on where you're at and what's going on, and just to kind of be flexible and adjust as best you can.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely a risk trying. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think diversification is definitely the name of the game.
Yeah, yeah. And for most folks I know that pursue a creative outlet full time will have multiple income streams. They might teach, they might get paid for a project, they might collaborate with someone and get paid that way. They might perform, they might display something somewhere if it's visual art and get paid that way. Be an artist in residence. So whatever your craft is, like for people who do it full time, they work really hard. I mean, they really do. I talk to many people who do that, and I admire them for doing that because it's not easy. But I love the fact that they are able to do that and make some sort of living off of that, of what they love to do.
Absolutely. I want to pivot and I want to get a little bit more. You kind of prefaced the work that you are able to do for the community with the Michigan Music Alliance, with GIG. I want to dive a little bit more into like what the opportunities, what the resources look like what's the good work that y'all are doing for the people. And I know that by the way, for those of you listening, we have talked about the Michigan Music Alliance previously because we recently had Chris Simpson as a guest as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Chris is great. He's basically our newest board member. Chris does
Yes.
a lot for the community too. And so, but for Michigan Music Alliance, we are focusing a lot on, so we've kind of like sort of refocused a lot of our priorities with our board and and kind of like rolling out different programs and resources. So we have a membership program now where you can become a member, and there's different levels of membership that you can purchase that will get you discounted for different events that we put on. That will also kind of go toward maybe if it's some resources or things that you can be part of. But really, we've launched a membership program. We've also started doing more events. So we've got we're trying to get more out in Southeast Michigan. Like I mentioned, we have our first official, I'd say, Detroit area event with our conference at Wayne State on October 18th. We're also doing more kind of like, I would say, meetups where we meet up with people in different cities. Our executive director, Nicholas Thomaswell, will go to different places around the state. Like the day before our conference, he's in Detroit on October 17th to do a meetup to talk with people about, what are they doing in music and what do they want to know? It's kind of like just like a casual networking event. So we're doing a lot of networking for people and trying to open those avenues through different parts around the state, whether that's Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Kalamazoo, Detroit. So to kind of cover the state more. We're looking at trying to do we're looking at also trying to do more in the past we've done online educational sessions called where we focus a lot on different aspects of the music industry. It could be how do you create an EPK. It could be how do you navigate the world of sync licensing. How do you navigate things like the legal aspects of starting an LLC for music. So we call those B-side sessions. So we have a lot of those that are free to watch online on YouTube that anyone can tap into. So it's resources, it's programming, it's networking events, fundraisers. Last year in Grand Rapids, we did a fundraiser concert for Michigan Music Alliance where we had several acts that we focused at the Wealthy Theater in Grand Rapids. So it's just we're kind of building out a lot of our programming as we've kind of reformed our mission and our vision for.
Absolutely. Yes. And how do you mentioned the memberships? But for those who might be interested in being involved or who might be even interested in just helping the cause, how can they participate?
Yeah, so we're always looking for volunteers we're always looking for volunteers to help us out at different events. In the past, we've talked about going out to different festivals and events where people can basically staff a table. So where they can help sell merch for Michigan Music Alliance. They can help pass out information and brochures and things that we have and kind of be like ambassadors. So I know at some point we're looking to kind of really build a bigger volunteer program. So if people are interested in volunteering, they can contact any of us. They can contact Nicholas Thomasmo, who's our executive director. They can contact me, anybody that's on the board about if they're interested in volunteering, and we can kind of take their information and figure out different opportunities of what that might look like in the future.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, we are at time. I could talk to you for hours.
Oh, absolutely. I can do that with people a lot, to be honest. Yeah.
I will definitely have to. I have been keeping in mind, especially as the episode count for the relaunch grows, I will definitely have to have some revisits because there's so much that we could talk about. There's so much that's happening. There's fortunately, but also unfortunately, depending on what you're talking about, there's a lot that will happen and can happen in the future.
Absolutely.
Before we go, I wanted to kind of shed a little bit of light on just everything that is going on in the world. There's a lot of just crazy shit that's happening abroad and domestically.
You can say that again. Yes, it's been a really odd year, and it's not easy to get through at times.
Yeah, and I wanted to talk a little bit about just kind of like what that looks like on your end. Like, how does that make you feel in terms of being a music journalist? We are living in a time where very much now overtly we are being told that our ideas and that our opinions now have to look a certain way in order to not be punished. And we are living in a very fear-based zeitgeist.
I would agree with yes, absolutely.
What are your thoughts? A loaded question.
So it's yeah, everything that you said is I those are observations I think about and make daily at home, just because it is a turbulent time. It is difficult to kind of live in a society where fear is kind of ruling everything and really making people struggle to try to share their voice. And what I typically do is find a way to escape some of that noise, whether that's online or on the TV, or just to kind of focus on what my purpose is and to kind of say I'm here to help people. I'm here to focus on what people are doing from a music standpoint. I'm here to kind of continue to do that. And so I think the important thing people can kind of continue to focus on is continue to do your art. We need your art. We always need your art, but we need it more now than ever. And we need to have your voice out there, regardless of what society, regardless of what politics is saying. We need your voice out there because you matter. And regardless of what everything else is telling you, keep doing it because we want to hear what you're doing. We need to comment on what's going on these days. We also need to band together as a community to really help each other even more now than ever. So I tell people to continue to put out what you're doing, continue to share your voice because it matters and we need to hear it more now than ever.
I agree. I echo that sentiment, and take care of yourselves in the interim, because there's an overwhelming amount of just news and updates and just changes and things that just continue to happen. And I know I had announced, I think early this year, I took a little bit of a like Facebook hiatus. And
Yes.
if I could take an Instagram hiatus, I wouldn't be on anything. But unfortunately, Instagram is the one where everyone pays attention to me the most. So that's the one I kind of have to keep. My little social media vacation was lovely. And I have really only reactivated the Facebook side of things. And I kind of feel bad because I probably should post on like Renovate Recording and my personal artist page, just to let people know that they need to look for me elsewhere, because I literally only reactivated it because I need to sell my my walking pad.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
And as soon as I can get that sold, and as soon as I have a soundboard that I'm also trying to get rid of, because I don't have the space in my new area. But I'm like, once I get those sold, I'm hopping right back off. And you know what? Even just eliminating one, it made all of the difference. It made all of the difference, and it helped me reprogram my brain and my relationship with social media in like 3 months or less.
And that is and I admire you for that, because a lot of the work that I do, social media is a big part of it. So
Oh, it's
it's a
hard.
matter of taking breaks.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a matter of taking breaks, and because a lot of what I do is I post, all the articles I work on. I post a lot of events and things that for people, or things that I'm involved in, and so it's kind of like I have to take a break at least one day a week. I have to do it where I maybe only get on and post, and then I have to get off and take a break, because mentally you need to give yourself some space for that, because it is draining at times to have to read all that, and when you're my personality type tends to absorb a lot of that from other people. So I have to kind of create space to give myself a break to process that, and to just not have to, and to just step away. Because at times, when you're a person that absorbs a lot of emotion and experiences from people and thoughts, you kind of have to give yourself a break. So I found that even if I just take a day or two here or there, or just get on and post and get off and maybe respond if somebody has a comment or a question, and kind of limit to that at certain times, because otherwise, yeah, it can be overwhelming.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's great. I really appreciate it, and thank you for taking the time to interview so many great people in our community.
Absolutely. Yes. Everyone is brilliant, and that's another thing that I find myself being incredibly grateful for, especially in these times, just being able to be a part of a community of just people who get it, people who understand what it takes and how it feels to create art in general, people who understand what it takes and what it's like creating in a time like this. I think now more than ever, we also need to be able to find those communities. If you don't have a community, you need to find it. And you need to be able to find people that you can genuinely trust, that you can genuinely share your thoughts with, that you can vent with. And it's not just the taxing pieces of humanity. It's also find people that you can share joy with, that you can share laughter with. In terms of any sort of resistance or pushback, that's one of the most powerful forms. Keep experiencing joy, keep laughing, keep dancing, keep singing, keep filming, all of the things, So I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for you.
I'm grateful for you as well.
Yes, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you again. Hey, thank you for your time.
And that's the final note, babes. You just listened to The Frequency Exchange. New episodes drop bi-weekly on Wednesdays. You can follow, subscribe, comment, and share The Frequency Exchange on all major podcast and streaming platforms. Visit www.londonbeck.com/The Frequency Exchange and keep up with me, London Beck, at LNDNBCK on Instagram, The Frequency Exchange at The Frequency Exchange, no space, on Instagram, or follow us via the LondonBeck.com newsletter. The Frequency Exchange is a production of Renevere Recording, and with yours truly as the executive producer. LNDNBCK Renevere Recording.